But earmuff, you stay on hard.
I see somebody else. Every time we have a guest on, that person's bobbing their head to our intro. They love our intro. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the BCSN SportsWrap right here on the Black College Sports Network. Bryan Fulford is out on assignment this weekend. He's enjoying his family reunion. Can we get it? So family reunion.
OJ.
So it takes two to replace one. Joining me today, the sound of the SWAC. That would be one Mr. Charles Edmond. My brother Charles, how you doing?
Good evening, guys. It's a pleasure to be on it. I just talked with Bryan Fulford. He's in the rolling hills of North Carolina, somewhere in North Carolina. Talked with him just a few minutes ago. So you're right, he's enjoying his family outing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And also joining us, Coach Work Sports, as he likes to call himself, none other than the Aggie Pride, North Carolina A&T grad, J.B. Walker. What's going on, Jay?
Nothing much, fellas. Happy to be on, and definitely represent the Aggie Pride. We're gonna talk about this a little bit because I got a gripe with a few people on social media, man. We got to talk about it.
Well, hell, let's just start right there, Jamie. Let's get this show fired up and ready to go.
Listen, I know in our show lineup, we're gonna be talking about band competitions, and so let's save it for a little bit later because I think some people feel as if the Aggies should not be included in this new band competition because they are no longer in the HBCU conference. So I want to get some opinions on this, just because there's some people that believe that we lost our HBCU status because we are not in the HBCU conference, and I want to see the justifications behind it.
And if you got something that you want to say about that, please put it in the chat. I got one question on that, Jamie. Wait, I got a couple questions. Are y'all an 1890 school? Land grant school?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
That means you're an HBCU. By definition, you are an HBCU if you're at 1890 school. That's those land grant institutions like Florida A&M, Alabama A&M. I believe Valley is the one in your state. Am I correct with that, Charles?
Yeah, Alcorn is the land grant.
Oh, Alcorn is the land grant. I'm sorry. Mm-hmm. Alcorn, Southern, Prairie View. I believe Pine Bluff's a land grant institution. Lincoln in Missouri. I could go on and on, but those are specific institutions created by the government by the 1890 Act, land grant institutions, which means that these schools were originally agricultural schools, in addition to teachers' colleges as they have all become. Now, let me get out my history lesson, y'all. Hey, what I need everybody to do right now, go hit that thumbs up button and share this podcast with a friend. Also, remember, go and download the BCSN app available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. And if you missed this or you want to share the audio version of this, hey, you can catch us on your favorite podcast streaming service. Just search the BCSN Pod Zone, where not only will you find this podcast, Dr. Kavir's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the Carlos Brown Show, and everything else that we do right here on the Black College Sports Network. We got another Brave Talk that's going to drop on the Pod Zone coming up anytime soon, Charles.
Yes, some of my SWAC Media Day interviews. As a matter of fact, I'm kind of slow in getting those caught up and produced and put in the portal, but definitely have a bunch of those. Talk with most of the coaches and the commissioner as well. So looking forward to bringing those to you.
Great. So with that, fellas, let's get this show started. And I'd like to start this off with some coaching news. Let's start off away from football, everybody. I hope we can do it like that today. Y'all want to start with football to get all the non-football stuff out the way and then stay with football.
Yeah, I think we can start with the non-football stuff and then do a deep dive into the football stuff.
Good. All right. So what we are going to do with that is there were a couple coaching announcements that were made this week. In case you missed it, because everybody was watching, there's so much football. Let's start off with the one that actually came out on SWAC Media Day. So this one got lost in the shuffle. You know something, fellas? I just realized it. Not one, but both of our alma maters got new women's head coaches. Interesting. Anyway, Shantae Webster has been named the new head coach of the women's basketball program at Tuskegee University. Director Reginald Ruffin announced on Wednesday. This was the day after the SWAC Media Day. The goal of this department is to always continue to build the standard that has been set, Ruffin stated. In the hiring of Coach Webster, we believe that Tuskegee's women's basketball will again have a coach that can carry the recent momentum along with maintain the duty to educate, dominate, and graduate our student athlete. Webster comes to Tuskegee after serving the three previous seasons as the head coach at Livingstone College. While with the Blue Bears, she led them to the CIAA tournament semifinals in 21-22 after inheriting a rebuilding program. Prior to Livingstone, she spent over a decade at Virginia State. During her tenure, the Trojans won 5 regular season division championships in the CIAA, a 2015 CIAA championship, 4 NCAA tournament appearances. VSU also captured 200 wins with Webster on the bench, along with the staff being responsible for more than 40 players achieving all conference recognition, lead players of the year, and produced the first ever VSU HBCU CIAA player of the year and academic All-Americans. Moving on to my first alma mater, that being Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. Florida A&M Vice President and Athletics Director of Athletics, Tiffany Dawn Sykes, named Bridget Gordon as a women's basketball coach, and this was announced on Friday. I am thrilled to welcome Bridget Gordon as the next head coach of FAMU's women's basketball, said Sykes. She is well connected and well respected in the basketball community. Her experience as an athlete and coach, along with her commitment to excellence, to academic excellence and integrity, make her the perfect fit for the nation's #1 public HBCU. Her quote, not mine, Jamie.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
No offense taken.
She was another former Tennessee Lady Volunteer, played under Pat Summitt, and she was a 2007 Women's Basketball Hall of Fame inductee. Let's see, she attended, she was a 2007 inductee into the Hall of Fame. She attended the University of Tennessee from 85 to 89. During that span, Gordon went to 4 consecutive Final Fours, 2 national championships, that was 87 and 89, a Finals 4 MVP, that was in 89, SEC Female Athlete of the Year and SEC Player of the Year in 89, 4-time All-SEC first team selection, 1986 SEC Freshman of the Year, 2 SEC Tournament MVPs, 88 and 89, 2-time Kodak and Naismith All-American, and she won Olympic gold at the 88 Summer Olympics in Seoul. And she was eventually named to the NCAA's 25th anniversary team and team of the decade in the 80s. I could go on and on about her playing career. She played in the WNBA and overseas. Her coaching career, she spent from 2010 to 2017 at Wichita State as an assistant coach. And let's see, I'm trying to skim through because it's not all in order. In the she went to the University of Tennessee. She spent 21-22 at Kansas State, and she spent time in Manhattan and at Cincinnati for the 22-23 season. She was supposed to join the staff at New Mexico State, but she decided instead to come to the highest of 7 Hills. Your comments from either one of you guys.
Well, I'll start with Florida A&M. I think, for A.D. Sykes, that's one of her first, big hires. She just, arrived at Tallahassee a few months ago. And so that was, Coach Pillow obviously resigned. It was kind of all of a sudden type of thing for her, for whatever reason. But I thought it was a pretty good hire. Her resume speaks pretty highly. And coming in at this point in time, she got to hit the ground sprinting and not running. She's got to build the staff, which I'm sure she probably already knows where the staff's going to look like, just getting them on board. But, her resume speaks very highly, has played at the highest levels and coached at the highest levels. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this is going to work at FAMU. We've had coaches in this league that have, been and have played at higher levels before. And I'm looking forward to seeing how she does at Florida A&M.
Jamie?
Yeah, I'm of that same mentality. I think she comes from very good stock when it comes to just the amount of experience and the amount of staff she's been around. When you're talking about, and I'll go, touch on the FAMU situation just a little bit. I think A.D. Sykes had a knockout hire. And what I mean by that is, based on experience as both a player and a coach, I think it is a phenomenal hire just based on the timetable in which this occurred. Charles is right. Basketball season has been long, done. And so when you're talking about coaching turnover, I'll go to the Tuskegee hire for a second. Their coach, has been gone up, and took another job. And I think, they went and made that hire, but they already knew that was happening. FAMU kind of got, I won't say it's blindsided, but what I will say is Coach Pillow hung on to that just a little bit longer than you would normally like to have. You want to have somebody in place because you're in recruiting season. You have all kinds of stuff. But as far as the hires, I would in both of them. I think they're phenomenal because even with Coach Wester, you're talking about that experience in the CIAA, who is one of the phenomenal basketball conferences in the HBCU ranking. You're talking about someone that has led into championships. So I think it's a phenomenal hire on both by both schools. I don't think you can do much better than what you have right now. We'll see what happens. There's lack of head coaching experience maybe on one end, but I think what you get is the experience based on everything you've been around, especially with Coach Gordon, when you're talking about where she's been and what she's done. I think they're both phenomenal hires.
And you have to be patient too, AD. And I know fans of Tuskegee and Florida A&M anxious to have their coaches on board, and kind of talked about it on Carlos's show yesterday. I hope fans of Tuskegee and FAMU are a little patient, because these hires are late and you're way behind the 8 ball. I mean, we've seen coaches get hired late and do well in year 1, but typically there's a little bit of growing pains involved and there's patience. And I hope fans of both programs are a little bit patient, because when you're hired in July, August, you barely know where things are. You don't know what your roster is going to look like. There's probably going to be some turnover. Some players aren't going to buy in. And so it's going to be a rough ride. I mean, you hope not, but that's just not realistic. Anytime you get a new CEO, people are going to leave because of philosophical differences or whatever the case. You're going to have that there too at both of those programs. So we hope, as supporters of HBCU athletics, that those programs are solid and those players stick and stay. But, we all know the realities, and we just hope that those coaches can hit the ground sprinting, get their staffs in place and really get off to a good start this season.
All right. Now, I've got to put my alumni hat on for both of these. That's why I want to get you guys' opinion first. For the FAMU hire, that's the second consecutive coach that we've hired who has no prior head coaching experience. But in this case, you kind of knew you were not going to get an established head coach at this late stage of the game. If you were to get a person with head coaching experience at this late stage of the game, it was going to be a retread. I mean, somebody who was out of a job. So somebody who's out of a job is probably out of a job for a reason. So after you throw that out the window, on paper, it looks like a good hire. I just hope Rattler Nation can curb the expectations this season, because, Coach Pillow already was short-staffed as far as players. She had 6 leave the program. She only thought she was going to have 3 leaving the program. So that's 3 additional bodies that she had. And let's keep in mind, she did not use all of her scholarships that she was allotted last year. So how many players will there be in Tallahassee in 2 weeks when classes begin? That's going to be the question. And is this an opportunity where you may need to look at mid-season transfers with it being so late in the game? We haven't seen that in a while, where you see teams bring somebody in January. But in this case, I think it is something that needs to seriously be explored if you're a rep. All right. Now, on the Tuskegee hire, I know that there were a few other candidates. This hire kind of surprised me, because I had a source at Tuskegee who told me it was going to be somebody else, another coach from another institution. So when this name popped up, I think it may be a good hire, but it really shocked me on that one that person was not chosen as the candidate, because I know there was somebody else that the alumni wanted, a former Tuskegee player who has coaching experience on the high school level and high school administration, but has not coached on the collegiate level. I know that was the favorite among the alumni, but how many times have the alumni been right? So we'll just leave that right there.
Hey, great point.
Yeah, so we'll leave that right there. Hey, fellas, did y'all hear a little bit of announcement that didn't have anything to do particularly with football, but was revolving around HBCUs this weekend, midweek, maybe about Wednesday or so, had something to do with marching bands or something like that? Oh, yeah. That was the announcement about the band championship. Matter of fact, before we discuss it, fellas, go play y'all this clip.
Greg, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the exciting announcement regarding the band of the year and how that's going to impact the upcoming fall football season.
Well, we are really, really pleased that ESPN Events launched a historic competition competition for HBCU marching band, something that has never been done in HBCU marching band history. Starting at the top of the season, bands will be evaluated by a committee of band experts. It's very similar to the college football playoffs, same model. Each week there's an evaluation of their performances. A ranking will come out twice a month, and then at the end of the season, the goal is, whether you're Division II, you're trying to get into the top 2 bands. If you're Division I, you want to end the season also at the top 2 bands, because those 4 bands, 2 Division IIs, 2 Division I, will compete for the national championship at their respective division level.
And so the competition is judged based on halftime performances beginning essentially week 0 with Southern and South Carolina, with Jackson State and South Carolina State, but moving on to the regular season. So it's the halftime performances which are going to be judged.
That is correct. So halftime performances are evaluated. So we're going to be looking at things like precision, musicality, originality, your drum line, your drum major and your dance chords as you have them. And points will be assigned by the judges at the end of as they evaluate each performance. And it's going to be included in that committee. It's going to be a stellar committee. It'll be cross, so you'll have some Division II band directors that are evaluating in Division I. You'll have some Division I band directors on that committee that will be evaluating Division II performance. With all of that being said, the opportunity to create a stage this large, and it's all season long, and to give what I'll call these band musicians or student athletes the opportunity to compete hand-to-hand versus an exhibition or an invitation will change the game as we see marching bands today. This will be championship weekend tonight as we crown champions in football and marching band.
Going back to the game on the field, there's a lot of turnover to the head coach or so the SWAC in the media. How you been kind of talking to those new head coaches? I know it's level fields for coaches. Are you excited about, maybe having new teams in the future, maybe new teams that develop, new winning coaches in your career?
Well, through the season is not as much as something that we necessarily focus on. We're focused on what happens at the end. The Cricket Celebration Bowl, you have to earn your right in it. You have to be the conference champion. And so as they are vying for that, it's great to hear the chatter as you heard some of the in here today, because the goal is really to get here for an opportunity to be national champion. And then to be able to do that in the same front with bands, to give band directors an opportunity also to get to Atlanta for a national championship will make this the entire season, because fans will be now engaged and they have an opportunity to vote in this evaluation as well.
All right, fellas, what you think?
I think it's a great idea. We know the bands are a huge part of HBCU football. The halftime, the pregame, the battle of the bands, the 5th quarter, the 6th quarter, the 8th quarter, however many
quarter
with the 0 quarter, the water break, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to put out there. So it's going to be some work for the committee that's going to be voting on this stuff throughout the course of the year. I'm anxious to see how that's going to go. I'm looking forward to that, to see how the ebbs and flows of that go. But I think it's a great idea. We know the bands are a big part of these games, and hey, you want to have a band showdown? Hey, let's have it.
Jamie?
Yeah. I'm kind of the same thought process. I absolutely love the fact that they are including more of the culture when it comes to the 4-letter broadcast in our games, but the band is part of the entire experience. So I'm glad that is being brought into into the forefront as well, because I think people have been clamoring for that. I think it's a great thing. For band, novices like me that go in there strictly for the entertainment, it'll be an opportunity for me to be brought into what is considered and what kinds of things are appreciated within band culture as far as what the bands do to perform. I have no pushback as far as it happening, but just more so of how it'll be judged, because hopefully it's truly those that are purists in band culture hopefully get an opportunity, especially those that have been around this space for a long time, get an opportunity to be included in the judging of what band is superior. So that's all I'm hoping for in a great deal of what the rankings will eventually be. Not just, those schools that are popular and you just say, hey, throw the bands in there. I mean, those bands that get down and are part of the entire experience, that go with those categories that you're looking for when it comes to bands. I hope those folks are included within the rankings.
I think that's the most important part of it, AD Drew. What Jamie Walker just said. Who are the judges? That's going to be the key. Now, don't ask me, because I think all the bands are great. I think every one of them, our band, The Sounds of Dynamite and the Human Jukebox and all that, they're all great. So don't ask me. But I think that's going to be the key, because that's going to generate discussion on social media. The bands that make it, especially the ones that don't make it. I think that's, we're going to be fussing and fighting, because as a teacher said, cussing and fussing at the end of this in terms of which bands don't make it. So I'm anxious to see who's on that committee. Maybe I ought to keep that. Maybe I ought to keep that under wraps.
Might have to encumber the committee.
That's right. Yeah.
They may wind up getting death threats when the human jukebox something like else don't get in there. But no, I agree with both you gentlemen. I am gonna say this. I do think a average fan needs to be included on that committee somewhere. Yeah, we definitely want the opinions of the band experts and everything else that goes into it, the people who've marched, the people who've been band directors and things like that. But what is the purpose of the halftime entertainment? It's for the fan. That's why I say there has to be at least just a fan or two on that committee. How outside of, we know the experts, they're gonna be looking at the technical stuff. Where did they get the right number of beats per minute, and were the steps off, or was the formation right? Yeah, we definitely need all that. But you, me, the three of us, we not gonna see that except when somebody fall. For me, when they lose a hat, that's when they screw up to me. I can't tell you that else except they left their hat on the 40-yard line. So, I think the general fan needs to be included. Also, shout out to Dr. Kavir, who 2 years ago saw this coming and created the Inside the HBCU SportsWrap band rankings.
He did.
So I don't know if John Grant is going to use some of the people who vote in his band poll, but I think that would be a good start. So,
That's
something.
vision.
As a matter of fact, we're going to go to our interview with John Grant a little bit early, but we're going to do that after the break. But before we do that, I got to give some shout outs, y'all. Chuck Hunt, checking in. First one in. Tambra T, first one on YouTube. Mary, 305. Jeremiah Clark. Edward. Jeff Roberts. Israel Carey. Carlos, watching us today. Edward Moore. Joshua Jackson, the pride of Edward Waters, University watchers. Hey, even Brian Fulford checked in to watch out. Hey, Brian. I hope they don't keep your seat. Hope they keep your seat warm, but not hot, my brother. Hurry up and get back. What's going on, Kelvin Roser, OG Strike Zone, Mary Arn, is in the building. Dr. Cavill is in the building. The man, the legend himself, is in the building. Kevin Bull Butler is in the building. This is what we're going to do, fellas. We're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with the executive director of the Cricket SWAC Challenge, the Cricket Celebration Bowl. And I'm not going to put cricket in front of it because I don't know if cricket is actually the title sponsor of the Band Championship. Mr. Grant, I can see you just shake your head yes or no if cricket is the celebration. Cricket is the sponsor of the Band Championship. So everything cricket that John Grant has something to do with. We're going to come back and talk to him about it. Hey, if you're in the chat rooms, if you got a question for John Grant, go ahead and put it in the chat. We'll see if we can get to it. You are listening and watching the BCSN SportsWrap. JB Walker, Charles Edmonds sitting in for Bryan. I'm AD, and we're going to be back in just a moment.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
This is the Dean of the College of HBCU Sports, Kenyatta Cavill of Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Come mix it up in the lab where the course lecture is in session every Tuesday from 6 o'clock p.m. Central Standard Time on Facebook Live, YouTube Spreaker, or the BCSN app, as we discuss all things about the HBCU sports culture, including exploring the week that was in the sporting HBCU diaspora, as well as the upcoming week of HBCU sports. With me, the Dean, the College of HBCU Sports, on Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab with Mike Washington and Charles Bishop. Course lecture dismissed.
From novice to aficionado, find yourself here. High quality cigars plus personal customer service. Slow Burn is Waco's only mobile cigar lounge, featuring a meticulous, curated collection of premium cigars. Visit our website, www.slowburnwaco.com. That's www.slowburnwaco.com.
We're back on the BCSN SportsWrap. Charles and Jamie sitting in for Bryan Fulford, and we are joined by none other than John Grant, Executive Director of the Cricket SWAC Challenge, the Cricket Celebration Bowl. And what is the official title of Mr. Grant, the Cricket?
Well, you asked me to nod earlier. I will have to say, although cricket is a sponsor, they're not the title of the band of the year. So they are a part of it, but they're not the title. How are you guys doing?
Do we have a title sponsor yet?
We have several that we are in conversation with right now, and we will be making an announcement, in the very near future of who will have those naming rights. But there's a lot of interest in it.
All right. Well, let's start right there. Normally we bring you on this time of the year to talk about the SWAC Challenge and whether Jackson State is going to beat South Carolina State this year in Atlanta. And we're going to get to that. But the chatter for the weekend has been the band championship. Talk to us. Tell us about it. Where did this idea come from? And I'm going to ask it straight up. Did Dr. Cavill's poll over the last 2 years influence you any?
Well, first, let me start by True AD. Thank you for having me on today. You know, I feel honored to be on with such an illustrious group of people who are, you know, covered HBCU sports and all things HBCU. Charles, certainly good to see you. Jamie, good to see you as well. Delighted to be here with you guys. Actually honored. We have actually been working on the Band of the Year concept since 2017. And it started with the idea that we would produce and conduct an objective HBCU band ranking process that was at the time posted and worked in conjunction with the Undefeated, with the intent that it would ultimately end up with an event that would actually crown a national champion. So for the years 2017, 18, and 19, we produced band rankings in conjunction with ESPN's Undefeated, which has now been rebranded to Anscape. We did not produce a ranking in 20 because of COVID. We did do it in 21, and we held off again in 2022 in preparation of the announcement this year of the Band of the Year championship event.
All right. My next question before I turn it over to Charles and Jamie. We all grew up and we watched Drumline when we were growing up. We've seen Drumline too. Will this be something like what we saw in the movie Drumline? Is that kind of the what we're going to see when we're in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium, or is it going to be different? How much of it will be like what we've seen in the movies?
Well, the movie was fictional, as you all know, and we are excited that we are working closely with Don P. Roberts. Don was the executive band producer of, both Drumline movies, along with a number of other credits that he has to his name. But no, it won't be anything similar to that. This will actually be a season-long race just to earn the right to get to the championship, so that for Division I and Division II bands. So the top two at the end of the season in the rankings, cumulative rankings. So the top two, regardless of conference, because it's conference neutral. If you make it to the top two Division I and you're the top two Division II, those four bands we will bring them to Atlanta. We're covering the cost of their expenses, and there is a significant payout to make it to the championship. So this is higher than anything bands will have ever seen as it relates to that part of it. And then those four bands, the two Division IIs will compete head to head, and the two Division I's will compete head to head for the national championship and the title of Band of the Year.
All right, Jamie, well, I guess your question got answered. A&T will be included, even though y'all not in a HBCU conference anymore. So with that, Jamie, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Mr. Grant, honored to always talk to you. How much, and I know there's been some banter back and forth already as far as who's included, things of that nature, and that question was addressed. How much will the conferences themselves have as far as showcasing what their bands are able to do as far as judging who should represent their conference, even though it is conference lists?
The actual rankings will be as they have been since we started the rankings. We have a committee of experts, and that committee, independent of conferences, etc., they will be the ones that will be conducting the adjudications of the performances, and when they produce their evaluation, those are the rankings that will be used. So the conferences won't have any specific engagement in how those rankings are produced. Now, I will say this, that we will have, as a part of that committee, of the committee that is comprised, that committee will be comprised of HBCU band directors from the Division I that will be adjudicating the Division II bands, and you'll have some band directors from Division II that will be adjudicating the Division Is. So there will be current band directors involved, but they will not be evaluating their own division. They'll be evaluating the other division, so we wanted to make sure that there is some inclusion for current band directors, and we've had a lot of requests from band directors to be on that committee, and that selection that will be made accordingly. But that hopefully that answers your question as it relates to how the ranking process will occur. And we will have a portion of that will be based on fan vote as well. So fans will have an opportunity through the season to vote and to have their voices be heard as well.
Yeah, that kind of leads in. Thank you for the clarification, and it kind of is a lead into my next question. There's a lot of band influencers within the band space, and so will the fan voting be the only opportunity those folks that have kind of are the people that are the boots to the ground will have as far as their influence on who gets in, what bands are within the rankings, things of that nature? How much outside of the experts that you're talking will have some kind of influence on who gets in?
Very little. It's very similar. If you think about the college football playoffs, you have a committee of professionals and who are experts, and they using their expert evaluation on a regular basis that's neutral. So and we want to make sure that is very much that this is a neutral evaluation and based on the objective criteria that the committee develops, because the committee will develop that criteria by which they will adjudicate. I can tell you they'll be looking at certain areas, but again, it'll be the final for them, but they're going to be looking at, I do know, very similar to what we've been doing since 2017. Musicality, originality, precision, your ancillary groups, your drum majors, your drum lines, etc. And if bands that don't have certain pieces, because not every band has a dance corps, but that won't hurt you as it relates to your rankings and how the points are assigned. Every band doesn't have an ancillary corps with flag corps and so forth, but that does not hurt you. So you're not penalized for not having that in any way, shape, form, or fashion. I want to be very clear on that as well. So it's going to come down to the committee of experts, because bands, when you're in high school, you're accustomed to adjudication. All of pretty much bands across the country go through an adjudication process. This is no different than that. And so the committee's objective, professional assessment of the band's performances will somewhat carry the day.
Before I give it to Charles, I got to ask a follow-up. You said those ancillary groups will not hurt you, but if your ancillary group goes out there and, for lack of a better word, is off rhythm or makes a mistake, will it hurt you in that case? Whereas not having one does not hurt you. But if you put one out there, it's got to be good, right?
Correct. The idea is that, for this, you think of it, I want you to think of it as when we all play very much football. It's wins and losses. With this, it's wins and losses. You got to bring your best performance each game. It's not something or each in each performance. And let me also outline. We're working right now very closely with band directors in communication. Not every performance they have will be adjudicated. There will be identified working with them 4 performances. Could be less, might be 3, won't be more than 4, I don't believe. Again, the committee will assess all of that. But let's say if it's 4 performances, the band directors will identify these are the 4 performances we want to be adjudicated on. And then we, as ESPN, we're going to actually put out a schedule, just like a football schedule. So people will know and be able to follow, fans will be able to follow which of these performances are a part of the schedule and the adjudication process. I will say this though, the season will end mid-November because we have to have an opportunity to put out the last ranking and then to put out a cumulative ranking, which will come out the Monday or Tuesday following Thanksgiving weekend. And those rankings that last cumulative ranking will tell you who's in. And that gives them those bands the opportunity to prepare, to give them enough time to prepare, to participate in to put their show together for the championship.
Go ahead, Charles.
So the SWAC championship game, Mr. Grant, won't count as far as the evaluation.
No, neither will the Bayou Classic.
Bayou Classic either. Okay, interesting.
Yes, sir. It will end prior to that.
Okay. Well, Mr. Grant, it's a pleasure to have you on. And for those who might not know, at Media Day, the day before, me, John Grant, Dr. Cavill, and others had a pretty passionate conversation. And I didn't realize how passionate John Grant is about this stuff. He is a fiery fella when it comes to these type of things. So I appreciate his passion, and that's a side that a lot of people might not know. We talked about this band competition. Do you realize, and for fans, so a lot of fans, this is big of the game as the game itself. As these rankings come out every week, the ebbs and flows of these things go every week. Do you realize the passion, the conversation, and as a history teacher once told me, the cussing and fussing that's going to take place week to week with stuff? Because it is, fans are really passionate about their bands. They love their bands and how it's judged and how it's evaluated. We all know that. You realize what you created does something that's really going to generate a lot of conversation,
and rightfully so. When HBCU bands, in my opinion, I'll speak for me, as are a part of the 3-legged stool that sets the culture for HBCUs. So you've got football and everything that goes with that, the tailgating, homecomings, and everything around that. You've got your Greek letter organizations who really kind of set the social tone on campuses, as well as an attitude of service and giving back. And then the third leg of that stool is music, and our HBCU bands are very much at the forefront of that. So when you take those 3 things, which is what we're attempting to do here with the Cricket Celebration Bowl and with the Band of the Year, as well as the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge, then we can really put forth and educate the nation on what the cultural experience and the impact and the relevance of our historically Black colleges are. And also, with this event, with this competition, think of it this way. We are now including Division II schools on a major stage and giving them an opportunity to participate in a championship weekend. We are also extending beyond just the team. So if your team doesn't make it to the championship weekend, your band can get the school here. So now there are 2 opportunities in the MEAC and the SWAC to be representative, for these schools to be represented. And finally, Charles, these conversations throughout the season do nothing but bring fans closer into and make them more connected to the sport. And that's what we want. And if we can create that kind of energy that you described, and to have those kind of discussions, and engage in that kind of passion, it only does nothing but solidify our HBCU family.
And the other thing is that, the Battle of the Bands, we've seen these Battle of the Bands competitions all over, and how they draw huge crowds: Houston, Dallas, Montgomery, Atlanta. I mean, when you just have Battle of the Bands, you're going to have thousands upon thousands of folks. So when you have the Celebration Bowl, and then you have 4 bands, battling for Division I, Division II rights, that's going to jack up the attendance even more so when you add that component to it.
And you're absolutely correct, but I do want to delineate, this is not a battle of the bands. And I have a great admiration, great amount of respect, and in terms of our battles of the bands and what they do in the showcasing our HBCUs. But this is not an invitational. You can't be invited. This is not a showcase. So it's not just to have you there to exhibit. You're there to compete, and you're there to win. So this is a Band of the Year competition. It is not it is not a showcase. It's not an invitation. You have to earn your way here. And so that means that you have to, each performance, week in and week out, when you're scheduled to perform, you have to put your absolute very best foot forward. And we think that only makes our band's programs better. We think also what that will do downstream. Now, band directors are looking for and to recruit the absolute best talent out there. And what that does, it increases and enhances our music programs and band programs at the high school level, which also creates interest for young people who may not have thought about going into music. But if I'm in the middle school and I see that there is an opportunity, maybe I can't play a sport, but I can be good in music, then I also have a path forward for me to compete, for me to get to a championship, and for me to want to engage in, as we know, the impacts of music. It's unquestioned that young people who are engaged in music are better in math. So it enhances the education opportunity. This, to also close out the answer to your question, we just took the highway, the road to Atlanta, and it's now become the Autobahn. It has been widened and it's faster. And it's more inclusive of more opportunities to make it to Atlanta.
All right. Mr. Grant, I got to ask this question. Since this is for a national championship, does a brother or sister get a ring?
That's a very good question, but understand this: we don't give the rings out for the Cricket Celebration Bowl. The schools do that for themselves. But I will tell you what will happen is there won't be a bigger stage at all ever for HBCU bands. And when you tie it to tying it to championship weekend, our motto for the Cricket Celebration Bowl is a champion will rise. And that champion, that applies on football, and it also now applies in our marching band. A champion will rise. And that will be based on what you do to get here and what you do once you are here to get yourself crowned as national champion.
I have a question about the bands real quick, Mr. Grant, if possible. So we know for the big classics that are shown nationally, the Bayou Classic, Celebration Bowl, the network show the band competition at halftime. Is there a television component tied to it yet, or where the networks will show this showcase?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, we have been showing halftime shows on ESPN during our linear television games. The announcers will tell you, go to ESPN.com and you can see the show in its entirety. And so that already exists. As far as the championship itself, yes, it will be carried on the ESPN platforms. It will be on ESPN. It'll be simulcast on ESPN Plus and ESPN.com simply because of music rights. We don't have to go through the process of getting music cleared, and it gives the bands more freedom in terms of the music selections they want to use, because we don't have to worry about clearance and rights fees, etc. If we're streaming. So that simulcast platform will be reaching millions of people. On ESPN.com right now, we have close to 40 million. Actually, I'm sorry, that's less than, I'm thinking about plus. It's over 100 million people that are a part of that access to ESPN.com, because it's a free app. It's not behind the paywall. You can just download the app and you got access. So we're excited about that, because again, you got a season-long stage set with a schedule, and that will also include any of those games that are carried on other networks, because I know that like HBCU Go, they televise their halftime shows. It makes it visible, and any of the other networks that are out there that are showing those shows. But the judges will have access to all of those performances, of the scheduled performances that will be developed.
All right. Just like you see an uptake in student applications after teams win the Celebration Bowl or even participate in the Celebration Bowl, do you think that will be the same thing as a result of this band competition?
Absolutely. There's no question in our mind about it. And it also will give each of the programs, whether you make it to the championship or not, I want you to imagine when the rankings come out, if you're in the top 5, I mean, you have being in the top 5 puts you in the elite group of marching bands, HBCU marching bands in the country. So obviously the goal is to get to Atlanta, but you also your prowess is shown by how you end up in the rankings. Where you don't want to be is at the bottom, like no one ever does. But we'll be ranking on each side up to the top 20 from Division I and the top 20 Division II. So that gives every fan who's following their bands an opportunity to see how they're performing through the season and where they're coming in the rankings.
All right. Last question before I let these other ones get in. As far as the event Friday night, Saturday night, will there be packages where people could get tickets for both Friday and Saturday, or will those be like two separate admissions? You got to buy a Friday night ticket and a Saturday afternoon ticket, and the same thing with like the suites and everything else. Will the suites even be available, or does everybody have to sit in the seat? Because there's somebody out there who wants to know these things as they start making their plans for the third Saturday and the third Friday in December.
That's a very good question. And the answer to your first question, will there be packages? Yes. Fans will have the ability to, when they're buying their Cricket Celebration Bowl ticket, that they can buy the Band of the Year ticket as well, and vice versa. Because they may decide, I want to sit in the same seat. I want to buy my game ticket, but I also want to sit in that same seat for Band of the Year. So we're allowing them the ability to do that. As far as suites, at this point, we're not fully determined on that in terms of how much we'll open that up for Friday night, because we want to make sure we're pushing fans to, if you're buying suites, we want you to do that specifically for the game on Saturday. But that's not to say it necessarily won't happen in year 2. But I think in year 1, we're going to sort of limit that to just Friday, unless we see how it shapes as we go forward. Fans the fans drive what this is. Right now, we're focusing on making sure that we're creating and building out the right model, because there are a lot of intricacies that will go into this logistically. Having a championship football game, you want to make sure you're giving the teams every opportunity to get prepared and to be in the venue, etc. And then to also integrate now a national championship for marching bands means that our team has a lot of logistics that we're having to work through to make sure that everyone who's playing for a championship gets an opportunity to have the best experience possible.
Jamie?
My last question, and it's, first of all, I love the fact that the Division IIs are included in this mix. How important was that for them to be all included in this competition? Because I know you know in just private conversations and just conversations in general, you wish it was a ball game that put together, especially the two conferences together in Division II. But how important was it to include them in this competition?
Extremely. It was critically important. We never even conceived without it. I mean, if you look at how we've been ranking bands since 2017, the Division IIs were included in that from the beginning. So there was never any doubt in our mind at all that this would not be inclusive of, like I said, the HBCU family, inclusive of those that are not necessarily a member of HBCU conference. But if they're, and we're having them, they're being ranked sort of as independents. They're in the Division I's, but they're not in the HBCU conference, but they're included as independents in the rankings currently. So, we all are a part of a connected network. And that network includes whether you're MEAC and SWAC or CIAA and SIAC and others that are in those categories. It was always our intent to make sure that we're bringing everyone together, around a form of championship for something that's common to all of us, and that's music, and that is our pride around our marching bands. And we believe that this is going to make this weekend, and it wasn't just about enhancing the Celebration Bowl. I mean, the Celebration Bowl is what it is. We're already at maximum capacity for how we facilitate the stadium. But it was really about how we create additional opportunities. What I call, band members to me personally. I've never been in a band. I love them like most fans do, but I also know the amount of work that the young people put into it, and they put as much work into their craft as the student athletes that are playing football, and they're put into theirs. And so I consider them athletes as well. When you watch their performances, they have to be in shape. When you watch their performances, they have to be accurate and precise in what they do. And so to give them a similar platform to showcase the hard work that they put in, and then to also not only give them the platform, but you're now you have the ability to compete for something that will matter for your university and for you personally. There's nothing better, if you ask any football player, when they can say they're throughout the rest of their life that they're a national champion. We now are giving that same opportunity to band members who can say that they earn the right to be a national champion.
Hold up, Charles. Mr. Grant, can you hang around for a few more minutes?
Absolutely. As long as you need.
All right, Charles, hold your question right here. We're overdue for a break. So what we gonna do, we go take a break, and then we're gonna come back and let Charles get in. And you know something, fellas? We haven't even talked about the doggone game that's coming up in like 4 weeks. So we got to get into the game. But I'm gonna let Charles get his last bad question in right after we come back from this break. You're listening, watching to the BCSN SportsWrap. Charles Evan, J.B. Walker, special guest John Grant, A.D. Drew driving the ship tonight. We'll be right back, y'all.
Supermarket sushi, really?
No. Wait, Troy, you work here?
I'm never not working. Like Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology, up to 100% dandruff protection, even between washes.
Never not working, huh?
Oh, Troy, you're such a good teacher.
Yeah, I know. Never not working. Never not working. Never, ever not working.
Are you serious?
Never not working. Dandruff protection that's never not working. Head & Shoulders Scalp Shield technology.
It's never too early to plant the seed, to share the tradition, and instill a sense of pride in your HBCU with your little ones. HBCU Pride and Joy Children's Boutique helps you share your school spirit with a wide selection of adorable kids apparel and accessories officially licensed from your favorite HBCU. Visit hbcupridejoy.com and follow us on all social media at HBCU Pride Joy on Facebook and Twitter.
This is Bryan Fulford. A.D. Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN SportsWrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN SportsWrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
When you're looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics, there's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
We are back here on the BCSN SportsWrap. Charles Edmond, J.B. Walker, sitting in for Bryan Fulford. My name, I'm A.D. Drew, and over there is John Grant, the Executive Director of the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge and the Cricket Celebration Bowl. Before we get back to it, I need everyone. I know y'all loving this content. I know y'all love it that we are bringing this to you hot and heavy. I need y'all to hit that thumbs up button. I need you to like. I need you to subscribe. I need you to find a friend and share this podcast with them. And if you're really feeling good about it, you see the information scrolling across the bottom, make a donation to the brother. You know, we ain't asking for a whole lot, just a cup of coffee, but it need to be Starbucks coffee, not McDonald's coffee if you're going to make a donation. That's all I'm going to say. Get back to it. Charles, before we went into the break, you get ready to come with a question. Go ahead with it, my brother.
Yeah, quick comment and a question. The comment is, I can attest to how hard the band works because our band, the Sounds of Dynamite All-Corn Marching Band, they actually practice behind a radio station. So I'm in their way and they're in my way when they're practicing out in the parking lot. At 7 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock, the lights are on and they're going at it. Band directors stop in practice because someone's out of tune, someone's out of step. So I can attest to how hard that they work because I get a chance to see that. And my question though is that we were talking about it before you went on. As far as the committee, it is made up of band directors, and we kind of had a suggestion maybe a fan should have a different perspective to be added to the committee. But what you're saying is that the committee's already locked in. You already got your committee set. Is that correct?
Well, what I'm saying is that the committee will be comprised of a number of different people. Some of them will be band directors. Some of them will be experts in the music area. And some you may be on the lookout. We may have some people who are professionals in the music industry who are also a part of this. So it is still being put together as we speak, but it will have a composition of all of those things. But we definitely want to make sure that the people that are a part of it are people who have a deep understanding of the various areas upon which they're going to judge.
All right. Got one from the chat room, Mr. Grant, and I'll put it up on the screen. Is there a performance time limit? How would you know if a band did or did not commit errors? And that comes from Tamara T out of our YouTube chat.
That is a very good question. And let me answer this from the end backwards. Okay, when you have televised games have a 20-minute total halftime, 20 minutes total. So when you are participating in games that we oversee, in order to meet that 20 minutes, bands are restricted to a 7-minute performance during halftime. That's a minute on, a minute off, and they play for 5 minutes. And that is a total of 14 minutes and a half, so that you can give the team an opportunity to come back out, warm up, and get ready for football. We have all, however, seen halftime shows that are extended. Teams are coming out. They're trying to warm up in the end zone while a band is on the field. And I will tell you just speaking personally, that's a culture that we really need to sort of change. It prohibits more of our bands from being televised on linear television, because television is time sensitive and is synchronized. And games that have a tendency where their bands play longer, you never see them on linear television. They'll be on streaming, or they'll be on a tape delay, because we can cut down in a tape delay and make the show what it should be. What we would hope is to get people or get our bands to recognize the value in having, a show that fits within the window of television. It helps the institution, it helps the team, it helps the school, but it also helps them in being able to put on a show that is succinct, that is crisp, and that fits within the window that gives the greatest possible exposure to the institution. Now, when they get to the championship, the performances will be 15 minutes. They're going to get a total of 15 minutes to perform their show. And the format will be in the format of a game. When it starts, you're going to have all 4 band directors come out onto the center of the field, and there'll be 2 coin tosses. A coin toss for Division II to see who, and they'll get a chance. Do I want to go first or second? And we'll have the same thing for Division I. The first band will come out and play the first quarter. Their quarter is 15 minutes. We're going to have a quarter break. Entertainment is in the stadium, keeping fans engaged. Then you have quarter 2. Then we will have an actual Super Bowl-like halftime show. There will be a performance, a concert performance at halftime, and then you'll have quarter 3 and quarter 4. So the anticipation is having an event that starts at 6. We'll be out by around 8:30. That's going to give the venue an opportunity to clear everyone out, reset the venue for the game the next day. Might be a little bit longer answer to the question, but that's how it's going to work. But the idea is we really need to have our thinking around to get the best exposure for our institutions, especially if we're dealing with television. Television works on a time schedule, and you can't have a half hour halftime and then expect to have your game televised. It's not going to happen. It never will happen. And so we have to help orient, all of the people involved to play the role that they have within the time that will best represent the institution and the band program at the highest level.
And that's an excellent point, Mr. Grant, because in the SWAC, there's a certain time frame. And when it comes to homecoming games and those rivalry games, you have to get permission to have an extended halftime from the conference office, because as you mentioned, those things are time sensitive. So that is, we all love the bands and they do what they do, but I guess trying to have the best show in the allotted slot time, it can be a challenge, but that's just the reality.
You're absolutely correct. And they're giving that exception to see if TV will also give the exception. But when you look at in reality, and these are just the facts of life as we're evolving now into the world of television, which is where we have to be. We have to be. And I say that again, we have to be. So long gone are the days of having it both ways. If you want the big stage, there are adjustments that come with that. And if you don't want the big stage, don't complain when you're not on it, because you want to do it a different way. It's just the way it goes. And but we hope and we think that, in work, I've never had the issue with the MEAC SWAC Challenge or the Celebration Bowl in working with the band directors to meet the time schedule. And I'm thankful for that. So it tells me that it can be done if we just put our mind to making that work.
All right. Any last comments on the band, Mr. Grant, before we move on to the football game?
I am delighted that we could have an extensive conversation on something that's brand new, because it tells me from the questions that you all have and from what you're receiving from your viewers that this is something that people want. And we're just really excited to be able to put this into place. And I want you to imagine what this will be like 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. The scale of something like this can be just immense, and what it will do for our institutions, as was mentioned around recruiting, student interest, and admissions applications to our unit. This is going to be unbelievable, in my opinion. We're going to see nothing but a renewed interest in this. And then I'll finally say this one thing, AD, if you don't mind, and that is no other game, no other bowl game of any kind will have what we will have around championship weekend with the Celebration Bowl, Cricket Celebration Bowl, and the Band of the Year. It doesn't exist. And this is the kind of innovative thinking that we need to have in order to continue to separate ourselves from the rest of the pack, because these are assets that we have within our framework that others do not to the type of scale we do. Of course, all of them have marching bands, and that's a wonderful thing. But no band performs like an HBCU marching band. No band entertains like an HBCU marching band, and our intent is to put that out into the forefront.
I know quickly, AD, you talked about, Mr. Grant, the financials with the Celebration Bowl. We know what the payout is for both teams. Are you able to discuss a number in terms of how much the bands will be getting? Is that yet to be determined?
I like the way you did that, because you want me to break that on this show, don't you? That was a very we have the number, but we're not prepared at this point. There are other details we want to make sure when we make that full announcement.
Okay,
we'll be able to have that, because the reason I'm not saying it now, because based on how these conversations we're having with sponsors that are interested, that number could even be enhanced based on what some of them are wanting to do. So I'd rather not say that at this point.
Yeah.
We'll get it until it's all worked out, and when we give a number, it's a number that everyone will know that they can count on.
Very good point. Yeah, you're right.
All right, Brother Grant, we talking about something that's getting ready to happen all the way down the third Friday in December. We got a football game, week 0, the fourth Saturday in August. What's going on with the SWAC challenge? I mean, that was actually the press conference that you broke this story at, was for the football game, and it has like overshadowed the football game. So have at it, my brother.
And thank you again for this opportunity to be here and to talk about that, but also to talk about this game. Look, the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge, we are so excited about this year. We're so excited for a number of reasons. Number one, we're excited about the impact of this game being in week 0, and that the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge this will again open the college football season in week 0. And that is tremendous. Number two, what makes it even more significant is that for the first time in its history, this game is going to be broadcast on ABC. And then add to that, for the first time in its history, it's going to be broadcast on ABC in prime time at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. That makes this one of the biggest games that'll be played on that day. It is the only game that's going to be on network television, which we're truly excited about that. And the fact that Walt Disney Company ESPN and ABC saw this game as a critical programming opportunity, and to put it in prime time. And without question, for all of us, we need to understand that speaks volumes. It speaks volumes to what this content is. Now, add to that, we just happen to have a rematch from the 2021 Cricket Celebration Bowl. Now, we booked this game back in 2019 without any thought that this was occur. But I will always say God is always good. And sometimes when we're planning things and we don't know, God knows at the time when this game was booked what the circumstance would be. So we now have a rematch of two great programs, two story programs in South Carolina State, who are the 2021 national champions, against two-time SWAC champion and Jackson State, who came through both seasons with incredible records. So the fans on each side, on the MEAC side, the SWAC side, Jackson State fans are calling it the get back. They're going to get back. on the MEAC side, they're calling it the beatdown. And that's what we love. We love the fact that there's a lot of energy among the fans. And I think you saw the camaraderie at the press conference among the coaches and the respect that they have. And final note to this, we are so pleased. I had a conversation with Coach T.C. Taylor. I've talked to them both when I talked to them, but to be able to provide for him this sort of stage for his coaching debut on, as I mentioned before, in prime time on network television with his team that he's built, and an opportunity to showcase him as a head coach, I couldn't be more pleased with that for Jackson State. And then, of course, with Coach Pugh, we know his record. And he himself said he had a very, very disappointing season last year. That his players got ahead of themselves and thought after they beat North Carolina Central that they were just automatically going to be in the Celebration Bowl. But we see what happened after that with them. But we think that the fans are going to have an opportunity to participate in something very, very special this year.
Well, I know my Florida A&M Rattlers are going to have an opportunity to be, since they'll be in the 2024 game, to be the ones who close out the season in Atlanta and open the season in Atlanta the next year. Oh, my bad. I was supposed to throw that out there. Go ahead, Jamie.
A.D., you a trip. Mr. Grant, this game has been huge throughout its inception. What are you doing this year to kind of sell the game to Atlanta?
That's a very good question. The beautiful thing about the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge, we moved it here in 2018 after having been in Birmingham, then Orlando, then it went from campus to campus, and we moved it here in 2018. And then at that point, our decision was, if it's going to be in Atlanta, then we're going to rebrand it. The name extended it. We added kickoff to it. And quite frankly, for our perspective, we have taken whatever the records were prior to coming to Atlanta. They're there, but we've put them on the shelf. So right now, the matchups are even. It's 2 MEAC, 2 SWAC. So this year is a tiebreaker. From our perspective, it's starting anew, and by adding certain things, we got another big announcement coming. I can't really tell it to you right now.
Another one?
Another. Look.
Go ahead and hit the breaking news sounder. Go ahead.
we just keep them coming, but there's another big announcement around this game that's going to be exciting for fans, and fans coming out this year, specifically to participate in the Coca-Cola fan experience prior to the game. It's going to be something that because it's free, people are not going to want to miss this. So stay tuned as we finalize the details and get everything inked for something that's going to answer your question, Jamie. is going to make not only Atlanta, but make everyone sizzle around wanting to be here.
Yeah. You heard it first right here on the Black College Sports Network. Stay tuned to the BCSN for the latest and hottest breaking news in Black college sports. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, one of the big passionate conversations we had at Media Day, Mr. Grant, you talked about the history of this game and being on this platform, and now it's on ABC. Talk about the involvement and development of that, because week 0, 7-8 years ago wasn't a big deal, but week 0 is a big deal now, and I'm sure there's competition to get on week 0 now compared to several years ago. Talk about the involvement, and we had a conversation at Media Day about that, how important week 0 now is compared to many, many years ago when it was just what it was.
Well, week 0 came about back in 2016. ESPN, in conversation with the NCAA, was looking to add additional football content. And so hence the creation of week 0 as an early entry into the season. And that you were right, Charles. In 2019, there were only 5 games played in week 0. We moved to week 0 in 2021. And by 2022, there were 11 games played. There will be 11 this year games played in week 0. But I have to give some credit also to the conference commissioners, because the way it works, conferences get to put one team with the opportunity to play in week 0. And when I went to Commissioner McClellan, and at that time, Commissioner Thomas, now Commissioner Steele of the MEAC, McClellan with the SWAC, to talk about the idea of moving the game into week 0. They were both very enthusiastically supportive of it. And so, Charles, as you can see, that now we're going into year 3 of being in week 0. In year 1, we were, when we went to week 0, we had College Game Day here, because it opened up the opportunity for us to access assets that ESPN had that were tied up in week 1 with all the big games. So College Game Day made an appearance here for our HBCU game against North Carolina Central against Alcorn, which was a great game, great matchup, as you well know. And then certainly, last year in having the game move to 7 p.m. and then go onto the ESPN network, and then this year moving to 7:30 onto ABC. The goal for us had always been, how do we get it to the linear network? How do we get it on ABC? And we, repositioning it into week 0, and then having some great solid matchups where we could lay a future schedule out, which we did, and we never had that for MEAC SWAC Challenge prior to coming to Atlanta. Laying out a future schedule gives the network the best opportunity for programming, and then that we can put good solid content. This game is great content for this year, and I can understand why the executives at ABC would want to choose this game, to carry.
All right. Mr. Grant, any final thoughts on either the Band of the Year? And I got to be careful of that. We got to make sure we don't shorten that one to an acronym, because if we shorten that one to an acronym, it's gonna spell something you probably already know if you say it wrong. BOTY. Anyway, any final thoughts on Band of the Year and or the MEAC SWAC Challenge?
You had to say that, didn't you?
Well, I'm sorry. If y'all have been around me on these podcasts, sometimes things come to my head and come out my mouth quicker than I can stop.
Well, there are great ways to use that. When you come into the championship, they're coming to kick BOTY. Yeah. So the band.
Extra O, BOO.
But first, I want to just say thank you guys for having me on. This has been incredible. I am very respectful of the work that you all do. Pleased with it. As we've said, it's programs like yours that we're keeping the lights on for HBCUs, our sports and everything that we do long before it was, cachet to others. And so I'm always going to show up when you ask me to. We're going to make sure that we are as best we can breaking what news we have with you, you all, because I'm a firm believer in you support the people who support you. And so thank you for that. Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge, August the 26th, 7:30 p.m. broadcast live on ABC here in Atlanta, Georgia, Wakanda, and played at Center Park Stadium. There's still a few tickets left. I think we're down to about maybe 3,000 or so, but we know that those will be gone soon. So once it's sold out, as this game always does, it will be. But we're asking, if you can't come, tune in. If you can't necessarily watch it, turn your TV on anyway while you're out, doing what you need to do, because those numbers count if the broadcast is on. But the beautiful thing is that you can watch the game not only on television, but you can watch it on your mobile device. We're all mobile now, and that's another thing that we're excited about with the direction that ESPN is taking with this with our direct-to-consumer model. So thank you all. We're excited for this year's Cricket Celebration Bowl will be December the 16th, 2023 in Atlanta, Georgia. Kickoff will be 12 noon. And for us, Atlanta, a champion will rise. It starts in Atlanta and it ends in Atlanta. Thank you so much for having me.
And with that, we appreciate you once again, John Grant. Thank you for everything that you do for HBCU sports. Thank you for the offline conversations that we've all had with you, John. Been some very enlightening conversations. And if you have not gotten your ticket, if you've never been to the MEAC SWAC Challenge and or the Celebration Bowl, I don't know where you've been. It's like not eating fried chicken and drinking Kool-Aid. It's just certain things you got to do. if you're a brother or a sister. So get there. If you can't get there, we understand. Watch it. I'm just going to say it like that. So with that being said, we're going to take a break. We've got our next guest sitting in the waiting room. We're going to come back. We're going to bring on Kelvin Carter. We're going to talk some SWAC Football Media Day. And we're going to talk about a new and exciting announcement that his company has with the Black College Sports Network. You see all these partnerships running around, Brother Grant?
I love it. Announcements all over the place.
Announcements all over the place. Hey, you gotta stay hot with the BCSN SportsWrap. That's Charles. That's Jamie. Thanks to John Grant. I'm A.D. We'll be back in 3.
If you think all pads are exactly the same, think again. This is Always Ultra Thins reinvented with the Always Triple Protection System. This pad wicks gushes 90% faster, absorbs even more so you can feel dry, and locks odors in. Rethink your pad for up to 100% leak-free and odor-free comfort with the totally reinvented Always Ultra Thins. This is always like never before.
The Cuvée Group is a Florida-based marketing and training consulting firm. We help businesses communicate to their target audience and engage them in conversation. We also help to expand their audiences, which will ultimately result in growth for those organizations. In addition to being a certified constant contact specialist, my colleagues and I are also certified in John Maxwell Leadership Principles. We use these proven principles to conduct workshops, training, and private coaching sessions for individuals and companies looking to take things to the next level. Contact us to schedule a free consultation. Issues today, don't delay, call Cuvée.
12, Stride, Career Prep, and I'm here today.
looking for the latest information on Southern University sports, the Southwestern Athletic Conference, and HBCU athletics, there's only one place to go. Tune in to the Carlos Brown Show, exclusively on the Black College Sports Network.
And our schools, in which the Black College Sports Network provides 15 paid internships for students that wish to desire to do digital media content creation and go out and cover HBCU sports. So we're glad to be here in Birmingham, Alabama today at the SWAC Media Days, which, as you can see, as we're here, behind us are all the members of the Southwestern Athletic Conference. So Dr. Tobin, if you could introduce yourself and tell us about your school and who your school supports here in the state of Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Dr. Keisha Tolber. I'm the Executive Director of Alabama Destinations Career Academy. We are a school of Chickasaw City Schools in Mobile County, Alabama. We offer public virtual education to students across the state of Alabama. Our main focuses are to provide career awareness, exploration, and preparation for students from K through 12. We currently offer 3 pathways that our students can show interest in. Our pathways are health science, manufacturing, as well as information technology, or as some may know it as IT. And so we're just really excited to be here and to partner with you all for this internship opportunity.
And this could not have happened without, Roy Evans and the staff here, Bryan, both Bryans, and A.D. Drew. And they're committed to helping our intern. Kaylin is our intern that'll be here from Alabama DCA. And we'll be bringing on about 7 other ones, and they'll all go through a great curriculum created by Roy that encourages students to explore their writing ability. I know your intern expressed direct interest in covering the HBCU band segment, so she'll be at Alabama State and Tuskegee. And it'll just be a wonderful time for her to go out on the weekends and explore multiple things. And also, while you're there, maybe you find an interest in attending one of our historically Black colleges. So with all that being said, we're just super excited to be in partnership with the Black College Sports Network, and Build, which is our group here inside of the K-12 Stride Company, is here to support our students in any way possible for their success. So Dr. Tolbert, is there anything else you want to let us know about Alabama Destinations Career Academy?
Yeah, I just think this is an awesome opportunity. Like I mentioned, we have our 3 pathways, which are health science, manufacturing, as well as IT. But the unique thing about Kaylin's experience is Kaylin is one of our health science students, right? But we have found a way through partnership with you all and how we can match media along with her health science interests, right? And so when you think about all of the sideline health science types of things that happen from having those trainers on the field to really understanding that there's a media presence even within that connection of her interest. And so I just thank you all for really partnering with us and helping us to kind of bring Kaylin's vision alive.
Well, yes, and like I said before, the partnership with the Black College Sports Network is amazing. And moving forward, what we're going to do is we're going to shift back into the gears of what Kaylin will be focusing on, which, like you said, she's a member of HOSA, she's a health sciences kid, but she saw fit and she said, I want to explore even more. And so this will give us an opportunity to do that. Well, with that being said, thanks so much for, coming out today and meeting with us and talking with us. And we're going to turn it back over to Bryan and A.D. and have a great day.
And with that, we are back here on the BCSN SportsWrap. JB Walker, Charles Edmonds sitting in for Brian Fulford, and joining us is a new member of the Black College Sports Network team, but also one of the people who has been a partner with us with this brand new internship opportunity that you just saw being presented. That is Mr. Kelvin Carter. Kelvin, how's it going, my brother?
Oh, it's going well. Got back in from Birmingham. It was great seeing Mr. Edmonds there, a guy that I've admired for years during my time on campus and seeing the work that he did at Alcorn State University, and recently learning that he's a University City High School graduate that is very famous here in St. Louis. So it's been a blessing to see what the partnership with the Black College Sports Network and K-12 Career Prep, College and Career Prep Learning is going to do. We'll have an intern in Alabama, Georgia, Virginia, Florida, and Texas. We just added online. So I just really believe that it's a great scenario for students to be able to have an early touch point in what we're doing, with our, with this type of space. And I just love the fact that our students will get access to the trainers, the band content, all of those things that'll be there. So I appreciate what you guys are doing. And like I said, Mr. Edmonds and Jamie, it's just always glad to see that we can get more young people engaged in this type of content creation.
And it's ironic that the first student that we picked for the state of Alabama was interested in bands. And little did we know at that time we would have a Band of the Year contest. And she's got 2 potential bands right there in her backyard there, Kelvin.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's the big part about it is in Alabama, we have 4,700 students. And with those 4,700 students there, we have like 500 around the Montgomery, the Birmingham area. And it's really going to allow for them to get a real up close with this. So as she sees it, she'll also get a chance. Like Alabama, Eddie Robinson Jr. said, the coach at Alabama State, they're going to play 7 games in the state of Alabama. So that's going to be a really unique piece that she gets a chance to see Tuskegee, Miles, Alabama State, Alabama A&M, and to actually see what did I see? What's different? What's the same? And with the recent announcement with Dr. John Grant and ESPN, I think that that's going to really put at the forefront of what the scope and the reach of how we're going to be able to push content out moving forward.
All right. I'm going to save the educator, the current educator on the panel for last. I'm going to go to Charles Edmond first. Charles, any questions that you want to ask Kelvin about this? Because we go get into some SWAC in a moment, but any questions you want to ask about this program there, Charles?
Well, yeah, experience is the best teacher. And I think, when you have these opportunities starting at a relatively young age, especially what we do and what we've done starting at a young age, it's with the pace of the way things are going, the earlier you get started to jump right into it at an early age, the better off you'll be. And experience is the best teacher. So I think this is a great opportunity, especially for youngsters out there to kind of test the waters to see what this is all about.
All right, now go ahead, Kelvin.
And one of the things too that I believe, being in public education for almost 28 years now, what I have learned is there comes a time when you have to engage the youth in a meaningful way, because as what we saw last year with Well Off Media and what they managed to do at Jackson State, it kind of shed a light on something that we hadn't seen at that moment. It shed a light on the fact that from the eyes of Deion Jr. and his group, they showed something that was of interest, but it might not have been being shown in that manner from the current platforms that we have. So for me, it was super intriguing listening to people here in St. Louis, Missouri, ask question after question after question about Alcorn State University. The current quarterback that we have at Alcorn State University, which is Tyler Macon, he knew about Alcorn because he watched the feed of the Jackson State Alcorn game and saw it on Well Off Media and said, because when I asked him, I said, hey, have you ever thought about going to Alcorn? He said, I didn't until you showed me the feed from the game. And then next thing you know, he's lives in the Riverview Circle area here, Mr. Edmonds and A.D., you're familiar. And his parents drove down and the coaches drove up on a Wednesday. He was there on a Friday. And the next thing you know, we got a grad, I'm not a grad transfer. We have a transfer portal guy from a Power 5, East St. Louis High School graduate. And this is going to open up that pipeline for East St. Louis to, they already sent a lot of kids to Alabama A&M, Jackson State. But now with Tyler's experience, and he's expressed that he's very happy at Alcorn, and his parents are happy, This only utilizes the reach of the Black College Sports Network and platforms like this to enhance our ability to recruit better players, more academians, and allow these kids to actually have a opportunity to have the HBCU experience.
All right, so now I'm going to ask the person who's currently working in public education, that being Mr. Jamie Walker. Give us your thoughts on this program, on it relating back to HBCUs, to the students that you deal with on a daily basis, and any other way you want to spend it there, Jamie.
Thank you. What you just said, Kelvin, has absolutely blown my mind, because that's exactly what I've been trying to preach for the last probably 10 years of my educational career. It is that the way to reach kids is to actually put them in action. You've seen the rise of career academies, things that go into the actual working space. And we've all gone to 4-year institutions, and they are great, and we're always gonna big those up. But at the same time, these kids understand technology, and they understand promotion even more so than we do at a certain age. And what you just said about Well-Off Media being the bridge between Alcorn and a player being in that area is absolutely great. It is phenomenal, because we can take that same model and replicate it through these internships. But what has been the feedback from students about the program in general?
Well, it's very intriguing. We rolled it out with a tight timeline, and kids are not in school. We actually have had to actually cut it off at July 31st as a deadline, which is tomorrow. We have 25 applicants really with no real reach, and they found out about it, and they had to submit audio samples, video samples. And when I say the things that they sent in, I had a kid that did a TikTok reel with a voiceover that was as good as or better than some of the things that I saw at SWAC Media Day. So, and it got so good that the kids in Texas like, hey, what about us? Because at first we were only going to focus around Alabama, Georgia, Virginia, Florida. But then Texas, I thought about it. I said, you know what? We got Texas Southern, we got Prairie View. We got these schools that are out there. And if there are kids that want to do this, now we're into capacity building. Now we have to now go and seek the resources that fund these types of opportunities. And as you know, what local business wouldn't want to put their kids, put your logo on the chest and say, hey, I got a kid that's out covering HBCUs. The next question is, oh, what restaurant is that's on your shirt? And it's like, it's a natural advertising piece. Now I have a live in-person person that's going across multiple platforms. And I think that's the connecting dot, Jamie, that Well-Off Media was able to connect. When I saw how many views and how many connected spaces this was in, I said, wow. And a lot of this I've seen up close when I talked with Coach Sanders about Barstools and the Barstools Campus Ambassador Program. And that's what actually kicked this idea into action. So now the goal moving forward is we'll have a BCSN Campus Ambassador at every HBCU that we cover. And now you got a situation where you got that content from the Greek show on the yard during the middle of the week to a live update from practice with Coach Fred and how's Tyler doing, or how's the new wide receiver transfer from Rutgers, how's everything going. That's going to be, to me, that's going to be what's going to be the separator and actually helps us transition even further into the marketplace.
How receptive have the schools been in embracing these interns as far as content is concerned? I know sometimes coaches and even bands or just organizations around the school, to a degree, depending on their style, can be, a little secretive. But how have the schools and organizations been receptive to this so far?
From the SWAC commissioner to every coach that we talked to, because Dr. Keisha Tolbert was there at SWAC Media Days to be able to meet these people. And it was so intriguing. Every head coach took a picture with her, from TC Taylor to Maynard to Coach Robinson. The SWAC commissioner was so excited. Everyone, it was so warming and so welcoming, to the point that now Alabama State, kudos to Jason Capel and Cyrus Russ for being forward thinkers. They said, you know what, let's take it a step further. Let's host an esports tournament on our campus that brings these kids in here, and we're going to let these interns cover this action as if they were covering a football game on a Saturday or, a band contest. So that part, I get the part around, a close-knit value of maybe some secretive pieces to it. But in terms of embracing the interns and the amount of exposure, but not only the exposure, giving the kid an opportunity to do something live and tangible is what makes it all the better.
Absolutely. And I know we got to go talk about some ball in a second, but just it's just been something I preached in this educational space because our old school approach to these new school kids. I even talk about this with my own son, who's 12 years old. Not the biggest athlete in the world, but he can take these tapes and start coding. I know absolutely nothing about coding, but he can take these things and start to promote himself and get followers on his own with nothing that I've done. So a program that embraces that on this level, on the collegiate level, and being able to absolutely work in concert with our HBCUs and promote them even more can do nothing but help. Where do you see this program? Where do you envision this program going? What is the next level for it?
Well, and I'll just give a short snippet. I was actually in the same building with Mr. Edmonds when I was in college because I was an industrial tech engineering major. But my life dream as a kid was to be in what I'm sitting here talking in right now. And my dad was like, "Nah, that's not an option. Pick something tangible." So I said, "I'll pick engineering, go to Alcorn." And then when I began to see the radio station, I used to walk past the radio station when I'm going to class. And then I saw what Mr. Edmonds was doing. And then I saw with Dean Barnes, and Mr. Evans probably doesn't know me from seeing me in passing, but we've talked multiple times. But every time I come back home and I see he and Dean Barnes, like one of my life goals is to be the guy to say, "And another Braves first down." And I was like, man, if it could just go there. But as far as where I see it going, I see it actually generating a revenue base because that's the other side of us. You just mentioned what your son said about the followers, the likes, all those things turn into monetization opportunities. So I could literally see this enhancing itself in a way that it would become solvent or self-sufficient in a way that when we put these campus ambassadors out there, the number of advertisers that would want to attach themselves to these ambassadors with the mass amount of purchasing power that our HBCU students and families have, literally I could see like, okay, Pepsi's going to say, we'll sponsor every last one of them with $5,000, or Coca-Cola, I want to be in next, or your local car dealership, or Mr. D's famous fried chicken out in Lorman, Mississippi, or Patton Store, or your local, it's the endless and limitless possibilities of what we can do in this career readiness education space across the nation. And now the story becomes, Mom, I want to go to FAM. I just saw somebody that looks just like me. Can I get there? Can I at least go for a visit? I just saw the AU Center. I just saw Clark Atlanta. Mom, I didn't even know it was like that. So I just think it gives us a real world perspective from real people that make this actually work.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
Kelvin, I have one suggestion. You're in St. Louis. You're in my hometown. And I don't know if you can make this happen or not. But, St. Louis had a Black College Football Classic, the Gateway Classic.
Yes, sir.
And I thought that was a heck of an opportunity for many years. We were in it twice.
Yes.
It went away. I think that's I don't know if it's gone for good or if it's gone for right now, but whatever I can do on this end, and I know you're there, what can we do to get that game back? Because I think that's another opportunity, for perhaps, drawing people to HBCUs, especially in St. Louis and the Midwest.
Well, I think what we have,
that's funny. Hold on, I was gonna say that's funny that you bring that up, Charles, because that's actually how Kelvin and I met once upon a time. My late sister, Cora Faith Walker, who was a former Missouri State legislator, obviously knew Kelvin, knew that was one of the passions that Kelvin had, and said, "Hey, you need to meet my brother because my brother is into it from his HBCU side." And that's one of the first conversations that Kelvin and I had. During the pandemic, maybe post-pandemic, because my sister and I, who was working at the time of death, working for St. Louis County, we were quietly working on the plan to put it together, but then the pandemic came and a few other things, and we never got it back, pulled it back off the shelf. Then unfortunately she passed last year, so we never got the opportunity to pull it off the shelf. But that was one of the things Kelvin, myself, and a few other people, along with my sister, where it talks about bringing it back together and doing it right. Because there's been 2 attempts at doing something the last couple of years. I don't know what the hell they was doing, but it didn't get done.
Well, what we have is there's a group that's put together here that's collectively working on it. We've been blessed here in St. Louis through leadership to say they want to do more things to engage the Black community. And in talking with Enterprise Car Rental, who started the soccer team, we now have 2 venues that are really good. We have the Edward Jones Dome that's inside, but we have a brand new state-of-the-art soccer facility.
Yes.
That's amazing. And the thoughts around it was you bring both teams in, we play in the new soccer stadium, which is really, the configuration can be redone for football. And it's been really, I talked with the SID from Arkansas Pine Bluff, and they're going to make another run at it. And this time I believe it's going to happen because the Sports Commission has gotten involved. And when these sports commissions in towns like Detroit, St. Louis, and Chicago get involved and say they want to do something, that's when all of the resources from the mayor's office to all these things get put in play to help those things happen. And Charles, what's so interesting is most people don't know that the first Gateway Classic was played in Busch Stadium.
Yeah.
And that's when we came and we played Howard at Busch Stadium. And Jay Walker and I actually were having that conversation. But it's so intriguing because Steve was the quarterback then. And it was like, that's the reason why I actually moved to St. Louis. Although I hadn't seen any more than the Millennium Hotel downtown. I said, I think I want to move here. So again, look at that exposure activity for up to 700 young people between the bands, football teams, and all staff included that get a chance to leave their respective campus and travel in. However, Mr. Evans, I'll give you a little push on the classic theory, right? Is the value of the classic now diminished in the component around giving up that quote unquote home game? Or are you working with a dual capacity incubator and saying, if we take this on the road, we use this as a multi-tiered approach to recruiting and enhancing the university experience? Because as we all know, what makes everything go is what you're seeing behind me on the screen is people in your stands, in your seats. How does that translate? And what are you giving? What's the yin and yang of a Gateway Classic or a Midwest Explosion versus us giving away a home game in that respect?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's, I know that's a whole nother show, another topic, even what we're, I can say this, Alcorn has a contract in place to be in the 2024 Orange Blossom Classic. And a decision hasn't been made, but that's a conversation. If Jackson State is, we don't know if Jackson's committed to 24 or not, but that will be our home game with Jackson State. That's a whole nother conversation. But you're right. In terms of these classics, are you willing to give up a home game? I think what you're seeing now is that schools are saying, I don't know. I don't think we're going to do that. So to your point, I think back then in the 90s when it was Air versus Sky, Air McNair versus Sky Walker, it was great. But now it's a little bit different conversation, different dynamics that are involved. So it's a whole nother show and a whole nother debate to talk about.
Yeah, and that's the part about
hold up. I was going to say, to my knowledge, Charles, Jackson State is under contract to 25. Don't know how the contracts got off, or one team was shorter than the other, but Jackson State would be under contract till 25.
Right.
And I think we would play. We technically would replace if I'm FAMU. We would replace FAMU. Right. Which and I will say this: I think this might actually would show something that Charles and Jamie and A.D. I think we're all familiar with it. That was a little of the discrepancy around the quote unquote Capital City Classic. Right. It just so happens that the game was in Jackson. Right. And it always made it feel like you're getting the double advantage of it being basically a home game for you. Now, ask me if I take Jackson State and Alcorn to the Orange Blossom, you talking about a crowd, you talking about a whole scenario. However, then we now have to study where do we stand as a people on the recent antics of what's going on with regards to education, the Alpha Phi Alpha my fraternity pulling out of Florida from a convention perspective. Those are certain things also, too, that are we going to take a stand in certain spaces and say, man, you know what? Our Alcorn and Jackson State dollars are going to stay right between our respective campuses. Our Orange Blossom Classic, respectfully, we're going to not come until some of this policy and the way you're treating our people inside of your state, until somebody gets a hold or reign around that.
It's a good point. Yeah.
Great point.
Definitely. Any last comments on the Stride K-12 partnership with the Black College Sports Network before we switch over to SWAC football, Kelvin?
No, it's awesome, and I look forward, Jamie. We can get together offline and talking about the curricular component that we're using that AD and Roy put together. And Charles, it would be also awesome to have you as an advisor with this as well, because we're going to have an audio component of it to where we have the radio and a kid might say, you know what, I want to broadcast this over as an audio component and show this and show the power of radio. I think the majority of Cardinal fans that are for a long distance came about because of the radio broadcast early on of the St. Louis Cardinals fans. Because you got Cardinals fans all the way from Iowa down into Arkansas. And for the longest time, I had no idea why, until an older gentleman said it's because the radio feed before the television is how all these fans became enamored with the St. Louis Cardinals. So that's another reach space. But no, we're just elated that Black College Sports Network and K-12 career and college prep are partnering together to provide this great opportunity for our students. And we look forward to its growth and development over the next 5 to 10 years. Now let's talk about Tyler Macon and the Alcorn State University Braves. number one finisher, Celebration Bowl champ. We're just going to do a little affirmations before we, get started there, AD.
I thought I was supposed to be the one doing the transitions.
I heard the story about Tyler Macon and how we got to Alcorn, and Kelvin just added another piece to it that I can talk about in terms of, our quarterback coach made a trip to the Midwest, and that's all I heard. But the other stuff that you talked about, I had no idea.
Oh my God! As soon as he entered the portal, it's actually a really unique story. Brady Cook is from Chaminade Preparatory School, where Jason Tatum and Bradley Beal both went. Macon is from East St. Louis High School, which is the equivalent of a Murrah, Callaway type deal, if you're familiar with Mississippi, or any inner city school. So he shows up at Mizzou with the other kid. Well, the other kid had a deeper connection in terms of NIL, and the NIL people were pushing for the Cook. He decides to jump portal. I saw it come up, and I was like, you know what? I think he fits, because based upon what I saw last year, I said, I think he fits because I watched his whole high school career at East St. Louis. And kudos to East St. Louis. I tell you, we got to get Coach Darren Sunkett on this show, because he's one of the best high school football coaches that I've seen. And he brought like a legacy of what SWAC football looks like in the South to the Midwest at the high school level. He has a classic over there, Charles, that puts 15,000 to 20,000 butts in the seats for a high school football game for the classic that he has over there, which is high school football. And also, they traveled and played at Madison Ridgeland Academy in Jackson, Mississippi, which, because he's an Under Armour coach, if all the connections are there, he coaches in the UA Under Armour All-Star game. He brings his team to Jackson to play IMG, and it all kind of rolls itself in.
Wow. Great stuff. Great stuff.
All right. Can we talk about something besides Alcorn? I should have been more careful when I invited 2 Alcorn people on the show. We used to 2 rappers in here, not 2 Braves. And I'll start with you, Jamie, since those 2 taking up all the airwaves. You were at home for SWAC Media Day. Unfortunately, you had to work
at work. Yeah, I was at work for SWAC Media Day.
Yeah, just give me your general thoughts of what you were able to see from not being there about SWAC Media Day, not being there in person.
I love the way that that there was some innovation within what they did. I've gone the last few years. Hated I missed it this year, but them changing up the format just a little bit, them having other streaming going on at the same time with their own digital network, and just the kind of the buzz around the changes in coaching. everyone was kind of curious to see what it would look like post, Coach Prime. And I think it turned into a phenomenal event where it talked about the football within it. There's a lot of intrigue within the conference this year just because of what it's going to look like. I think a lot of coaches, and rightfully so, feel that they have their opportunity to kind of get back in it. I think just based on what the media day looked like, it was still a star-studded event when it came to just the people with the boots on the ground of HBCU media being in place. And so I love to see it, man. Just the different perspectives, the coaches, the characters, everything that's involved in what the SWAC does was on display at SWAC Media Day. And I got to give him his props. Dr. Charles McClellan being a little more than gracious ambassador for the conference, even more so braggadocious, if that, for lack of a better term. He talked about his conference and what they're doing media-wise. And I think that's very important, especially to those ears that are oftentimes talking about media and what the conference is doing and things of that nature and words he's used before and stuff like that. And I think he went a long way, regardless of whether or not you liked it or whatever. He went a long way to talk about and promote the Southwestern Athletic Conference and what they're doing innovation-wise. And, at the end of the day, hey, I love to see it. You got to love to see it because ultimately, he is at the forefront of what they do. And I think the conference was on display for their football. And we want to see as fans and as HBCU media what this conference is going to be going forward and what's the next ascension of the conference going forward. So I think Media Day went a long way to actually put that at the forefront.
All right, Charles, you were there. You were in a different room than I was. You was in Radio Row. I saw you when everything started. I didn't see you again for the rest of the day. I don't even know what time you left up out of there, my brother. So, tell us about Radio Row.
Well, as you mentioned, the way this is set up, it's set up in different areas. So you have Radio Row in one room, virtual interviews in another room, SWAC Digital Network, that's the SWAC's online platform, in one room, ESPN Plus in one room, and then you had the podium, that's where Jay and Tiffany were. So you had to kind of usher the coaches and players amongst those different areas and try to get all those folks to interview with all those different platforms. And that it's a challenge, but I think, everybody does a good job in trying to get folks to where they need to be. And I thought overall, the SWAC did a really good job. My question, and I said it 6 months ago, will there be as many media people this year as there was the last couple of years? I think we can say no, there wasn't. But the commissioner, the commissioner said there was more media requests for Media Day this year than there was last year. So that's good to see. So that means that as other people, Carlos Brown and others have said, the SWAC's not going to miss a beat despite what we don't have, and that's fine. But I thought Media Day overall was really good, and I want to give kudos to the SWAC office. I don't know how many people, and I've said this on different platforms before, the SWAC office is comprised of about a dozen people, including the commissioner. There may be 13, maybe 14 at the most. So when you think about an organization like the SWAC, there's not that many people working in the SWAC office. But when you see what they do, it seems like it's a lot of people working for the SWAC office because of the job that they do. So I want to give Andrew Roberts, Commissioner McClellan, up and down the line, everyone in that office, and they're all on display for these championships, Media Day. Anytime the SWAC's on display, the whole office is there. The whole organization is there. So they do a really, really nice job. As far as the storylines, man, I'm telling you, it's going to be an interesting year because you have so much uncertainty with new head coaches. You have a lot of uncertainty in terms of the quarterbacks. And as Jamie Walker said last year, quarterback continuity is going to be the key. He said it last year, and it's going to be the case again this year. New quarterback at Alcorn, Tyler Macon, who signed an NIL deal, by the way, with our collective, the 1871 Collective, as well as, other teams breaking in new quarterbacks. So it's going to be an intriguing year to see, who's going to come out. Jackson State obviously has lost a lot. TC Taylor coming in, and I'm so happy for him because every time a coaching change happened at Jackson State, the first name you heard was TC Taylor. He should have been the head coach years ago, I think, but he's got that opportunity, but he's lost a lot. Shiloh's gone. Shadur's gone. So a lot of the defensive players are gone. So we'll see, can they defend their championship? We'll see if FAMU can finally break through. So these are just the, one of many storylines that makes this year's media day, that much more exciting, that much more frustrating, and gives us a lot more to talk about.
Kelvin, your first SWAC media day, what were your impressions of the first time, your first time being in that space?
Well, kudos to the SWAC office, and I knew they had limited staff. They did such an amazing job. The setup, I think, was really neat. And potentially, I do think that there's an opportunity there for like an internship type deal where you can, if you got some local high school athletes and students that are in the area, you bring them in and you work them through the process of saying, hey, okay, here's a list of how the coaches are to be guided when they come off one podium. You take them here and guide them around. Because I saw a couple of SIDs struggling a little bit with like the scheduling component. And there's some, like I said, there's some technological pieces there, everything from a Google sheet to whatever, to just get these kids engaged and show them like, hey, here's event planning at its best. Because when we showed up on that Monday, it was actually awesome for me to see the ESPN stage being built, and then to see to even put up our space. And from someone that's always seen the space, I was like, wow, this is actually incredible. And I didn't know how they were going to pull it off. I didn't know how any of this would sound and or look. But when I say it was top notch, it was top notch. And it was also great to have a conversation with TC Taylor. I believe, this is just my opinion, I believe they're stronger. Jackson State is stronger this year than they were last year. And I'm going to be honest with you, I got that insight actually from the Alcorn State University running back, Agent Zero, who also has the NIL with the 1871 Collective. Yes. Kudos, shout outs to that group. And he told me that the quarterback from Canton, Mississippi, that was also at Syracuse with him, is highly expected to be the starting guy for Jackson State. And he said you can't underestimate him because they actually reloaded with more of the types of players that I believe that TC is comfortable with. And I'll say kudos to TC Taylor. I believe it was all in the right timing. I would have not wanted to see him get the job after the last coach that they had. I think this was the perfect table set, because if you look at everything that's happened from the Guard the Yard show that just came out with UA sticking around, I don't think you could generate the type of accessibility to partnerships and partners, and they stayed. That was the testimony to the HBC. UA stayed. Michael Strahan's partnership stayed. The new practice field stayed. All of the amenities. And now TC got a better leg up. It's almost a similar situation when Fred took over for Jay Hobson. You can complain all you want about the hire or be happy about it. Jay Hobson did an amazing job getting ready to and he transitioned on to USM. Fred steps in. We've had a little turmoil and controversy there, in terms of how the administrative component has worked. But with all things being even, I think TC's walked into a real good situation. And I think the only advantage that we hold on them is I believe we owe them some payback, and I think we're going to get it in Jackson, Mississippi. And, be there or be square. I think we'll be in the Celebration Bowl.
Well, I might have to go to the Soul Bowl.
Since you put that, Kelvin, give me your top three in the East and top three in the West. Order finish.
Okay.
Start with three.
Top three?
Yeah, start with go up 3, 2, 1.
3, 2, 1.
Third in the West.
I don't have the divisions right in front of me, but I got Alcorn and Jackson State, and it's going to be interesting because that means that Alcorn and Jackson State would play twice. They would play end of season, and then that game actually would mean that whoever wins hosts the championship.
Possibly.
So I got Jackson. Well, I got FAMU, Jackson State, and then underneath us, I have more than likely Texas Southern.
Interesting.
And only because I believe that the QB at Texas Southern, all things being equal, he's the great equalizer. So you got Prairie View, then him. I think he's the equalizer. I think they had enough last year to do a whole lot. And I think another year that I really like watching him play.
Texas Southern, one of 3.5 teams that have a returning starting quarterback. I say half a team. I'm going to tell you about the half team in a moment. Obviously, we know we got Texas Southern's quarterback is back. Prairie View's quarterback is back. Fairview's quarterback is back. Preseason offensive player of the year. But Alabama State, D. Davis is back at Alabama State. But remember, he didn't start all of the season for Alabama State, as their quarterback went over to Grambling, I believe.
Grambling. Yes.
So D. Davis injury / performance found him splitting time as a starting quarterback. So we got 3 of the possible, if we talk in this page term, as far as returning quarterbacks there in the SWAC. So, you always have to factor that in, veteran signal callers, especially in this conference. Charles Edmond, who you got coming out, East, West?
I'll start with the East. I'll start with 3-2-1. I was really impressed with Eddie Robinson Jr. in Alabama State. They won the MEAC SWAC last year, and they won a really big game late in the season at Texas Southern, in which they were down 13-0. They rallied and won that game, knocked Texas Southern basically out of the shot to win the division. If you remember in the West, in one weekend, you had 4 teams that had a crack at the West: Alcorn, Texas Southern, Prairie View, and Southern. And Alabama State, came back and beat Texas Southern. I was impressed with Eddie Robinson Jr. in that situation. Dr. Jason Cable, who's an Alcornite, by the way, has done a great job at Alabama State, and that was a good hire. So I have Bama State at 3. I have a lot of respect for TC Taylor. I'm glad he got the gig. But even though what Kelvin said and others, hey, they're just reloading, I think they lost a lot. And I think it's going to take a little time, the continuity piece. I don't think Jackson's going to get there. And I got my buddy Willie Simmons, who, by the way, loves flaming hot sunflower seeds. Gave him 2 bags at Media Day. There's pictures out there and video of it to prove it. He's my guy, offensive coordinator at Alcorn, came in with Jay Hobson. And so I have FAMU winning the East. In the West, you talked about Texas Southern. I talked with Coach McKinney, the head coach there, and he talked about Andrew Body. And he said in his first 2 years, Andrew Body thought he was the man, meaning putting the team on his shoulders. But this year, he hopes that he's just a man, meaning one piece, and you've got a defense behind him. Grambling hired Everett Todd. Everett Todd was at Grambling as defensive coordinator. He's now at Texas Southern, a really good DC there. So I think Texas Southern's defense is improved. I think Body is improved. That offense is improved, but not quite at the level of the next 2. I have Southern finishing second. We all know Coach Dooley. We all know what he can do. We all know what he did at Prairie View. And, there's a lot of talk about his attire at Media Day. That's got the social media rounds. I'm not a fashion plate. I'm not a fashion expert. I thought he looked fine, but other people thought differently. But Dooley's going to bring the flash. But now, as fans have said, he's got to bring the wins, and he's got to get to Atlanta. You got Harold Blood at quarterback. From what we've heard on Carlos Brown's show, we believe Harold Blood will be the starter against Bama State. If he can get it done, that defense was really good at the end, winning the Bayou Classic. I mean, they created havoc. Their defense is really good. But I got to give it to my Braves. You talk about Tyler Macon. Fred McNair's chomping at the bit. Braves fans are chomping at the bit. They are not happy. We won 6 straight division titles. The last 2 years haven't been all that good. And our fans are giddy. They're anxious. They're upset. But they're excited to see this Braves defense, in which they ended the year well against Jackson. Can they pick up where they left off? It's going to have to be against USM. It's going to have to be against McNeese. It's going to have to be against Stephen at the start. It's going to be a challenge. But if we can get good quarterback play and Agent Zero, 250 carries last year, way too many. Way too many. We got to get others involved. So if we spread the wealth, Agent Zero does his thing, Tyler Macon gets off to a good start, I think we'll be there at the end. So I have my Braves winning the West, and I have my Braves going back to Atlanta.
Jamie.
My turn. Okay. I'm gonna start in the East. I am going to go with, as far as my third place team, I'm gonna pick two teams really out of both sides that have not been mentioned. I think Alabama State is great, but I also believe that Alabama A&M is not getting enough credit. I think if they can get better quarterback play, they have the running game that can carry this squad. And I think if the play calling can kind of settle down what the QB position, what's that?
Even with Ibrahim going to Southern?
Yes. I still think they can run the football with England. So I think you have an opportunity to be able to come back after a couple of years of just being off. If they can secure that quarterback room, I think they would be just fine, because you got to consider they brought in a bunch of transfers the year before. Those have to gel. And, this has to be, Connell Maynard's finest hour, because I think with the talent that they have infused, this is the 2 years after what's the quarterback? It slips my mind. Yes, after Akil Glass, you finally have to get everything in line, and I think that defense will come to play as well. Second, I'm gonna say FAMU. I'm not sure who Jeremy Musa is throwing the ball to, and so many of his passes went to Xavier Smith. So I want to see what his development is going to be like going to another receiver. Even though they had a full complement of receivers, he just relied on X, which I understand. Phenomenal receiver, but I want to see what that looks like. I also want to see what the running game is going to look like and how that'll be played. And my number one in the East is Jackson State. And the reason I say that is because they have a huge chip on their shoulder.
Yes, sir.
When you talk to that fan base and you talk to people around, they have arguably the number one or number two recruiting class in the FCS. They've recruited well. The players they've retained are coming in with a new attitude, a renewed attitude. When you talked about, and me and somebody went back and forth about who the next coach would be once we found out that Coach Sanders was not coming back, I said it would be someone on the staff, and I always thought it would be TC Taylor, because it says something about a coach that went to that school, that genuinely loves that school. If you look at what TC Taylor has been through when it comes to that school, being demoted in a sense last year, coming back and still wanting to be, this is his dream job. Along with that, I've seen what he's able to do with offenses. Even though he won't be, Maurice Harris is the offensive coordinator. He's coached in the MEAC. He knows what it takes to operate against those schools. Look at that staff and who it's comprised of. I'm telling you, I think Jackson State pulls off what a lot of people don't think they will do. So that's who I think will win the East. As far as the West is concerned, I'm going to bring another dark horse here. Miles Crawley is the quarterback at Grambling State University. I loved what he was able to do at Alabama State, because I think he brought a passing element that wasn't necessarily taken advantage of at Alabama State. I know D. Davis was supposed to be the person that came and saved what they were doing, but Crawley played well. I think they were a quarterback away last year, and I think if they have some speed on the outside along with the running game, I think and that defense is coming to play. One of the best defensive lines in the SWAC, and I think Sundiata Anderson, although people may have disagreed with him being picked as the preseason defensive player of the year, I think he will come to play, and I think Grambling is a sleeper in that third place spot. My second place, I'm gonna go with Texas Southern. Texas Southern, Andrew Body. I've seen his body of work. I've seen what he's been able to do. I think if they are able to just kind of secure what he does, from an offensive standpoint, and not make him the absolute focal point, but if he can win you a game at the end, let him cook, then do it. But I think if you can get an overall team effort, and the defense played pretty well last year, the offense was sputtered. I saw what they did against Southern last year in shutting them out. You can see what they're able to do, and Andrew Body cooked as well. So I think, you know, they're primed to be in that second place spot. But I have to give the number one spot to who I think is arguably one of the best coach in the SWAC, and Fred McNair. Alcorn should win the West. Southern would be close. I need to see what Harold Blood's going to do, because that rotating trio of quarterbacks and them finally selecting McDaniel at the end, I want to see what Southern's going to do. They could easily overtake. They could easily ascend to number one. But I think Alcorn, if you have making that plays along with that running game, along with that defense, they're the number one team in the West, I believe, as well.
All right.
Smart man.
And for me, you know, I'm gonna be honest. I made y'all give me 3, but we know in the East, it could really be any one of 4 teams that win in the East. The 2 Alabama schools, Fairview and Jackson State. Would not shock you if any one of those 4 won in the East. But if I had to, since I made you guys quantify it, I am going to quantify it. I've got Jackson State coming in at 3. Ooh. Too many. Look, you lost over 60% of your starters on both sides of the ball. You had over 50 players leave the program. I just don't think that by the time Jackson State figures it out, I think they're just going to be too far down in the race. That's just my opinion, especially with the early schedule that they have, with all those road games and neutral site games. I mean, they are home one time between August 26th and homecoming. One home game between week 0 and homecoming. That's a lot to ask for a team to do. Now, they do have the caveat, because we know they like to travel. When they play Alabama A&M on October 7th, although that game is in Mobile, Alabama, Jackson, Mississippi is actually closer than Huntsville is to Mobile. Where Jackson is about 3:15, 3:30, Huntsville is about 5:30 from Mobile. Although it's in the state of Alabama, it's closer to a home game for Jackson State. But, you know, that's a lot to ask up for a new team, new coach to come in with that many games away from the comforts of your own home. That's why I have Jackson State picked third. I've got Alabama State picked second. And I've got the Rattlers finishing first. But I do not have the Rattlers going undefeated. I do have the Rattlers going to Baton Rouge and not be able to pull it off down in the Bayou for the only blemish in the regular season. Now, flip it over to the West. Let's be real. Probably anybody but UAPB. If anybody but UAPB wins the West, it would not shock anybody on this panel, because I think there is that much parity in the West. Everybody has its good spots. Everybody is flawed in the West, and everybody has a lot of questions that they have to be answered. But you ask for my top 3, I'm going to give you my top 3. Coming in at number 3 is Prairie View. Coming in at number 2 is the defending West champions, Southern. And I've got the Braves coming in at number 1. Couple of things. When y'all quiet, y'all dangerous. I will say that. And I said this on SWAC Media Day. I will re-emphasize this. Alcorn has been playing to a disadvantage for the last 2 years, having to pay back all those games from the COVID year.
From opting out, yeah.
They finally have a full home schedule where everyone has to come to the reservation who's scheduled to come to the reservation. I think the fans will be enormous. Heck, it's been what, like 4 years since you guys played Southern at home?
Yep.
Something ridiculous like that because of all the stuff. So having that Southern game at home, man, I wish I could be there for that. That's all I'm going to say. But to actually have the luxury of knowing we get to play our full allotment of 5 home games. I mean, here you only had 2 home games at 2021? 2022, you only had 2 home games, whatever year it was. I mean, that's ridiculous. We do y'all want to go compete with 2 home games. So I have Alcorn State, and you talk about championship pedigree. Alcorn State has that championship pedigree. So, but I don't know if Alcorn is going to be coming in at 7-1 or 5-3 because of the West is just that it's just that crazy in the West. Shoot, you could have Alcorn coming in at 4-4 and being a representative. It's just that wild in the West. So we'll just leave it at that. And PZ, I was talking about conference home games. They only had 2 conference home games. I see that you put that out there. That they had 3 home games in 2021. Gentlemen, we are way over our time, so we're going to go around and let everybody get their parting shots. We're going to save our interview with Dr. McClellan for another show. It may be on the SportsWrap. It may be on one of our other podcast platforms inside the HBCU Sports Lab, the Carlos Brown Show, the ONG Strike Zone. It may be on any one of those, but we will play that interview with Dr. McClellan from SWAC Media Day at some point in time this week. So we're going to start off with our party shots. Kelvin, I'm going to let you go first.
Well, again, thanks to Jamie and Charles and AD, and thanks to Roy and Ben and Brian, to the Black College Sports Network, K-12 career college prep, and just launching this wonderful internship program that is only going to get better over the years. And I look forward to seeing everybody in Atlanta for the MEAC SWAC Challenge. It's going to be a heck of a day for SWAC football, Jackson State versus South Carolina State. And K-12 and our partners will be there along with BCSN. And hopefully we'll all get together, have a wonderful time, and understanding that this is for the upliftment and betterment of our institutions.
Charles Edmond.
I've been a part of this conference since 1986. And I, as a student at Grambling State University, I can't remember a time in which this conference is such on the up and up with the addition of FAMU and Bethune and with all the storylines. I can't remember a better time to be a part of the SWAC. This is a great time. Embrace it, enjoy it, support it, live it, be a part of it.
Jamie Walker.
Wow, man. We are 27 days away from HBCU football. And the anticipation is thick in the air. I'm ready for it all. Embrace it, like Charles said. Not just in the SWAC, but just in the entire landscape of HBCU football, man. I'm ready, pumped up for it.
All right. And my party shot is, hey, make sure you guys pay attention to the Black College Sports Network. You saw we broke some news here on the Black College Sports Network. John Grant broke some news. I want to thank him for joining us today and breaking that news and just talking about the band, the Band of the Year championship. I got to make sure I get to get my words correct with that. The Band of the Year and the MEAC SWAC Challenge and the Cricket Celebration Bowl. I want to thank him for joining us and talking about that. Want to let you guys know we're also going to be dropping a new podcast that will be focused on SIAC football this year. Make sure you stay tuned to the Black College Sports Network so that you're there. It's going to be on Monday nights, starting in a couple of weeks. So if you're an SIAC head like I am, I write for D2football.com and cover the SIAC. So what better way to do it than to take what I put on paper and bring it to video and podcast form. Kelvin, did you want to mention your podcast that you guys are going to be coming up with?
Yeah, we're working. Charles, you'll be happy to know this. Working with the 1871 Collective and talking about a Braves All Access show. And so we're working with those guys to kind of solidify what that'll look like. But I think it'll be great to have Braves All Access as well as the 1871 collective here for about 30, 45-minute show. And I think it could only add to the depth of the fact that we're one of only two HBCUs that have a collective. So kudos out to the leadership of the 1871 collective and what they're able to do for these young men and young women at Alcorn State University. And also kudos to the Braves All Access group for all that they do for Alcorn State University sports and athletics and for the student body at Alcorn.
Yeah. So more dimes dropping on the Black College Sports Network. There's only one place that you can get these dimes here, right here, MyBCSN, and the number 1 on all social media platforms. MyJBN online on YouTube. Hey, before you log off, make sure that you have hit that thumbs up button, like, subscribe. When this podcast ends, wait for it to process, then go share it with a friend. Go share it with an enemy. Go share it with somebody who you don't even know. I don't care. I just want you to share the doggone thing and make sure that we get it and we get our viewers up. We want to thank each and every one of you guys for joining us right here on the Black College Sports Network. Hopefully, my partner Brian will be back here on next Sunday. Wish traveling grace to Brian Fulford as he heads back to Atlanta and then back down to Orlando. Don't know who we're going to have coming up for you next week, but I guarantee you it's going to be hot. It is going to be heavy. So, once again, want to thank John Grant for coming and joining us today. Special guest Kelvin Carter, Charles Edmond, Jamie Walker. I am A.D. Drew, and thank you guys for listening and joining us, and we'll see you in 1 week. Good night, everybody. Peace out. Travel light.
But you stay on hard.